Would like to welcome
Recording in progress.
everyone here to today's meeting. And instead of calling roll, we'll get this echo out in a minute. Sorry, that's okay. Would like to welcome four new members, well, actually three new members and a reappointment. Davis Bell, welcome to the board, sir. Thank you. Charles Metz, welcome, sir. Seth Summerside, welcome. And Jamie Turner, welcome back as a reappointment. And with that, calling roll, I would like to start here with me and introduce myself and what segment I represent on this board, and I'm going to ask after that the members on Zoom, and then we'll go around the table. I'm Sammy Angel, Lake Village, Chicot County, and I represent row crop producers here on the board. Members on Zoom.
Good morning. I'm Jamie Turner from Gillette, Arkansas. I represent row crop producers. Thank you.
Marcus Creasy, Arkansas Livestock and Poultry Seat.
Travis Center, representing the Arkansas State Plant Board, Farmers at Large.
Any others?
I'm Michael Blazer. I'm the Dean of the College of Forestry, Agriculture, and Natural Resources at UAM.
We'll start around the table.
I'm Brent Butler from Siloam Springs, Arkansas, poultry and livestock. Ryan England, Bentonville, Arkansas, dairy.
Davis Bell from Desart, representing the Rural Services Commission.
Jerry Christie from Nashville, representing the Cattlemen's Association.
Daryl Hess from Wynn, representing the Plant Board and the Arkansas Plant Food Association.
Big Four, substituting for Chuck Culver, representing University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture.
Debbie Moreland, I work with the Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts on behalf of Jerry Clark.
Jeffrey Powell, Arkansas Department of Agriculture.
Department of Agriculture.
Mickey Latour, Dean of Agriculture at Arkansas State.
Sam Whitaker, row crop farmer, Southeast Arkansas.
Morning, everybody. Seth Summerside, representing aquaculture.
Robin Ralston, representing row crop in Arkansas at Rice Mill.
Charles Metz from London, representing swine industry.
Bruce Leggett, representing Arkansas Natural Resources Commission.
Chris Coffin, White County Livestock and Poultry.
West Ward, Arkansas Department of Agriculture.
We'll continue on around the room while we're going.
Wade Hodge, Department of Agriculture. Tom Lewis, National Weather Service.
Chris Calculator, Natural Resources Division, Department of Agriculture.
Scott Bray, Plant Industries Division, Department of Agriculture.
Pat Fisk, Department of Agriculture, Livestock Poultry.
Dana Jones, Department of Agriculture.
Billy White, Department of Agriculture.
Cynthia Edwards, Department of Agriculture. Amy Lyman, Department of Agriculture.
Good morning, Eugene Young, USDA Ag Statistics Service.
Kelly Robbins, Arkansas Rice Federation.
Rachel Hayes, Congressman, Western Health.
Ivan Morrison, Congressman, Western Office. Stokes, Senator Cotton's office.
Ty Davis, Senator John Bozeman's office.
Mark Contrare, Department of Ag, Forestry.
Jay Paul, Environmental Health Branch Chief in Arkansas Department of Health. Jeff Jackson, Arkansas Department of Health.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all. We'll let everybody know I'm well and safe. If I really get in a bind, I'll call Wes first. So please disregard any emails received. It seems like all my friends on the board here and none of my other email contacts receive those requests from me, unbeknownst to me. So, but I am safe and well. So, thank everybody. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the February 9th meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
A second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion, additions, or corrections? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is Mr. Lewis
Just that fast.
with good news.
Yeah. Guess I'm up here. Yeah, and I don't know what good news is, but that's the question I've gotten this morning. Do you have any good news for us? And it depends if you're looking for rain or a little. We're gonna have a little both in this forecast. Usual thing that we start with when we get into these forecasts is what have we had so far this year in 2022? And so it's the usual fancier. Going to take a look at a table of rainfall. Let's try this one here. Okay, there we go. So the top three on the table are from northern Arkansas, second three are central Arkansas, and in the south, we're looking at these last three. And the takeaway from this graphic is that in April anyway, we had above normal precipitation in much of the state for the first time in a while. Had below average precipitation for quite a few months, and for the first time in a while, we had above average, and some places had over 2 inches above average precipitation, including West Memphis, and Fort Smith was over at 4 inches above average, and Jonesboro was 3 inches above average. But a lot of pluses there in that plus minus column. And then for the year so far, the takeaway from that. Can you advance it from back there? If I just say next slide. Okay. Okay, let's just do that. So if you go across the state, the most above average precipitation is going to be from central and the northeast Arkansas. So from Little Rock to Jonesboro and West Memphis. West Memphis is almost 10 inches above average for the year. Fort Smith is about 4. Little Rock's about 3. Still in the south, we have a little bit of a drought issue. So you head into El Dorado and portions of the southeast, you see that El Dorado is about 5 inches below average for the year. It has improved a little bit, but still below average there. Next slide. Try the clicker. Try the clicker. Okay. There you go. Yeah, so that central into northeast Arkansas part that we were talking about. So from central into northeast, and then on into the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes is where you tend to find, at least in the last 90 days, the wettest conditions across the country. And this is a very La Nina-like pattern. So La Nina would be, if you go along the equator in the Pacific Ocean, the water temperatures are cooler than what they should be. That's what La Nina really is. And during a La Nina pattern, at least in the spring, this is what we typically see. And this is a very La Nina pattern. So wet from here on into the Ohio Valley, and then dry as you head farther to the southwest. Probably should put these fades in. And then with the above average precipitation, at least from central and northeast Arkansas, rivers are running a little bit high in that part of the state. So this was the forecast as of yesterday. And anywhere you see the orange colors, we're getting into minor flooding, where the rivers are a little bit above flood stage in that part of the state. So the Spring River, which is a more flashy river, won't last very long above flood. That'll come down. But rivers like the Cache, the Black, Ouachita, Lower White will probably stay in flood for a while. The White River especially will probably stay this way for several weeks before it falls, unless we get additional rain, and then it'll just continue being kind of high, or maybe even get higher than what it is right now.
John, are all lakes that feed the White, are they at flood stage pretty much?
They're pretty high right now. Yeah, they are. With the rain though, we have improved, at least in the short term, the drought conditions across the south. So on March the 15th, this is where we stood on the drought with some D3 conditions actually in the far southeast. And here a month later, it's vastly improved. Still a little bit of drought in southern parts of the state, but we're down to like a moderate drought. D3 is all gone. Northern and central Arkansas look fine with no drought conditions at all. So that's the silver lining in all of this. So flooding, yes, along the rivers, but the drought seems to be subsiding somewhat. Still, the biggest drought problems across the country continue to be out west. Articles are coming out about Lake Mead and Lake Powell, which are out in this part of the country. So you're talking Utah, Arizona, Nevada, those areas, generally along the Colorado River, which flows through there. Big water shortage problems. They're trying to figure out what to do with that. Pretty much because this has been a problem that's gone on for years in this part of the country. And it doesn't seem to be getting any better as we move forward as far as looking at the forecast down the road. So that's probably going to continue through the summer and into next year out west. As far as around here, we were talking about La Nina now, and earlier forecasts showed maybe La Nina subsiding as we headed into later this year and into next year. We're getting a little closer to this this red line, which would indicate kind of neutral conditions. El Nino would be warmer than normal water in the Pacific Ocean along the equator. We're cooler than normal. But it does look like now that we're going to stay La Nina for the rest of the year, which is a little bit of a change to the forecast. And the bad news with that is that the last time this happened, where you got into the summer and you were firmly La Nina, so you look at these blue numbers up here, which would be La Nina. The last time it happened, if you go on down the scale here, was 2010 and 2011. It was the last time we were La Nina heading into the summer, firmly La Nina. And if you remember 2010 and 2011, some of you are shaking your heads. Not very pleasant in the summertime. So if we look at the summers going back to 1895 across Arkansas, 2010 and 2011 made the top 5 hot list in those years. And so 2011 was at number 3 and 2010 was at number 4. So based on that, if we continue to be, this could be bad news heading into this summer as far as it being hot and dry right here in Arkansas. So we may go from a very wet pattern to very much like these years, the rain just kind of shut off going into the summer and into the fall. If you look at what the Climate Prediction Center is heading into the summer, that's kind of where they're going with this, with drier than normal conditions anywhere from the northern plain, well, much of the plains anyway, northern Rockies and down into Arkansas. And the only above average precipitation would be with the monsoon that they generally get in the Southwest. That's, that time of year, and then maybe east of Arkansas. So that doesn't bode well for us either. So if I was to put this into forecast form, we could start with tomorrow even in the near term, kind of active in the next 2 to 3 weeks, probably looking at quite a bit of rain. The latest models that I've looked at, if we're trying to decide what part of Arkansas would get the most rain, it would probably be northern into central Arkansas. But anyway, kind of an active pattern for the next 2 to 3 weeks from here to the Ohio Valley, May, early June, something like that. And then rivers are already running high. They could get higher if we do get that much rain because everything flows downstream. So if we do end up with all of that rain up at northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, it's going to get into some of those rivers that are already high. Black Cache, Ouachita, Lower White. But this is the big one here, this paragraph. Long range models showing a drying out period as we head into the summer. That's kind of where we're going with this. Getting hotter than usual. I don't know if we'll end up in the top 5 like 2010 and 2011, but I think we'll probably be heading in that direction. And with that, the drought that we've seen in the south, which has improved, which will probably come back and may expand farther north, depending on if we really shut the rain down or not. And this is our website. Just Google National Weather Service Little Rock, and we'll get that address up there. Of course, we've got these briefings up there for days like tomorrow, which will be pretty active. Wind producing storms tomorrow, maybe some isolated tornadoes, something like that. Anybody have any questions? And if you don't, or you forgot to ask a question, you can just email that right there. John Duff Lewis at Norman.gov. Anybody have any questions today?
Some talk of increased tornadoes in the coming the norm?
It could be, some of the increase that we've seen, at least since the early nineties, have been because we have, the technology's gotten better. So before 1992, we had an average of about 18 or 19 tornadoes a year in Arkansas. Then we get the Doppler radar, and it's gone up to 39 a year just because of that, because we can see small circulations like we couldn't before. The vast majority of tornadoes that you see, well, the tornadoes that you see on television generally are the big ones, the ones that cause all the damage. But when you start getting into the F3s and F4s, those only comprise about 3 to 4% of all. It's a tiny number. Very few tornadoes ever get that strong. 90% of tornadoes generally don't do anything. So those are the kind of tornadoes we're talking about that the radar detects. So we go out and if you see those on radar and we hear of damage, then we go out and survey them and was it the tornado that caused the damage or not? And then we evaluate it that way. But long story short, tornado numbers will probably stay up where they are now. But some of that's climate based and some of that's technology based. So.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. All right. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is Mr. Jeff Jackson from Arkansas Department of Health.
Good morning. I appreciate everybody having me here today. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Jeff Jackson. I am Food Section Chief with the Department of Health. I have Terry Paul with me. He's the Environmental Branch Chief for the Department of Health. Just a little background on myself. I grew up on a farm. I still work on a farm every day. My family has a cow-calf operation. My uncle was president of the State Cattlemen's Association. He was on the National Beef Council. So agriculture is something that is strong within me. And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. A little bit about our program. I can figure out how this clicker works. So this is the Environmental Health Branch. This is where Terry Paul is, and he's over all these programs. So we have on-site wastewater, which is septic systems and things like that, swimming pools, marine sanitation, which deals with wastewater on the lakes and streams, plumbing, public water, and then the food-related stuff, which I've highlighted in green, which is grade A milk, manufactured food, and retail food. So just a little background on our legislative authority. The health department was formed by Act 96 in 1913, created the Board of Health, and gave us the authority to regulate public health and to do inspections. And then Food, Drug, Cosmetic Act gives the health department the authority to ensure adulterated and misbranded products do not enter the marketplace. And then ACA 2057-201 is where the food retail food language is found. It defines what a restaurant is or a retail food service operation, gives us the authority to regulate those facilities and require permits. And then ACA 2059-201 or 101 sequential defines milk and dairy products and gives us the authority to operate the grade A milk program. A little background on that. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on that. Our grade A milk program, currently we have 30 grade A dairy farms that we inspect and 3 grade A fluid milk plants. We have a staff of 3. I've included their contact information here. I believe these slides will be emailed to you later if they haven't already been, so you'll have this information. But Sandra Lancaster is the section chief over the milk program. A lot of y'all may know Sandra. She's been around a long time and does a real good job for us. Manufactured food program. This is responsible for permitting and inspecting non-meat and poultry related wholesale distribution within the state, as well as food manufacturing facilities. So if you're a plant that's producing jams and jellies and frozen peas or whatever, right? So we permit those through a separate program, which is called the manufacturing program. I think there's 800 and something manufacturing facilities in Arkansas. And we have a staff of 3 people who take care of those facilities. Some of those inspections occur on a more than yearly basis, depending on the severity or the risk associated with that product. And then we'll get into my section, which is the retail food section. We inspect restaurants, bars, grocery stores, retail meat markets, hospitals, school cafeterias, basically anywhere where you can go and eat or purchase food. That's where we're operating. We have 101 health specialists that cover multiple programs that cover on-site wastewater, swimming pools, rabies. We really do a lot of things with our folks. And we do approximately 18,000 retail food facilities in Arkansas, which is about 32,000 inspections annually. If you want to talk to one of our staff in the county that you live in, you can contact your local health unit there in the county that you reside in, and there will be an environmental health specialist who either works in that county or is assigned to cover that county. So we'll be glad to answer any questions that way. Just a quick overall overview of our inspection program. 83% of those 18,000 or 32,000 inspections were routine inspections. These are inspections that we continuously do to just ensure compliance with the rules. About 8% of those are following up on issues that we've identified during our inspections. 3% to complaints or investigations, and then 6% are opening of new businesses or restaurants change names or something like that. The Food Freedom Act, I put this in there because I think this probably has a lot of impact on farmers in Arkansas. So you may have been familiar, prior to the last legislative session, we had a Cottage Food Act. That act was replaced with the Food Freedom Act, or Act 1040 of 2021. And what it did was it allowed all non-TCS or non-time temperature control for safety foods, which basically means they don't have to be refrigerated, to be sold, and it expanded the locations where you can sell them. So you can sell them either from the home where they're produced, or you can sell them through a third-party vendor. You can sell them over the internet, a lot of different ways that you can market your product. It includes foods that were previously allowed under cottage food, which are jams, jellies, fruit candies, baked goods, and chocolate-covered fruit and berries. And then it added things like dehydrated roasted products, so baking mixes and dry beans, things like that. The biggest change is added acid and acidified foods. And what that is, those are canned products that are either acidic on their own or they've had acid added to them to get them to a pH below 4.6. So you'll see a common theme here. It has to be heat treated, has to be packaged, and it has to have a pH below 4.6. And then there's some special rules with that requires you to either use an approved process or an approved recipe, or you need to test each batch to ensure that that product is less than 4.6. And it also has to be labeled with a unique number for each batch, in addition to the other labeling requirements, which require the name, address, and telephone number of the producer, ingredients, the manufacturer, and a required disclosure statement that basically says this product was produced in a private residence and is not subject to inspection or licensure by the Department of Health. Put a note in here. The Act also allows users to register with the Department of Agriculture and obtain an identification number that they can put on their labeling instead of having to disclose their name, address, and telephone number. So if privacy concerns were there, you can do that. I think as of yesterday, there were 275 approximately people who had registered. So pretty good number of people who have registered for that. Just to touch real quickly on what it does not include. It does not include temperature control for safety foods or foods that require refrigeration. And by definition, that includes cut tomatoes and cut leafy greens, garlic and oil mixtures. Those have been known to produce cause botulism. Any cooked product that contains vegetables, with the exception for pickles and acidified vegetables, seed sprouts, any product that contains meat, poultry, seafood, or dairy, low acid canned foods, which would be beans, corn, canned squash, things like that, dairy products, butter, sour cream, deli salads, casseroles, and then miscellaneous desserts that require refrigeration, like tres leches, cakes, pumpkin pie, tiramisu, custard pies. That's my favorite. And with that, we did recreate the cottage or the homemade food production guideline. If you're familiar with the cottage food guideline, it was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 pages long. And now it's expanded to, I think, 20 some pages, and it's very much more clear on what you can do and what you can't do, and is a little better guideline in my opinion. And I'm not just saying that because I wrote it. That's a QR code that you can use to, if you aren't tech savvy and want a copy of it, just send me an email, give me a call, and I'll be glad to get you a copy of it. I also have a QR code for the Farmers Market Guideline. This is a document that we partner with the Department of Agriculture on. It gives information on not only foods that you can sell, but selling of live chicks and rabbits and plants and all kinds of things. So very good document. We updated that along with the homemade food production guide after the passage of that legislation. With that, I'm open to any questions. This is my contact information. This is Terry Paul's information below. I'll be glad to take any questions that y'all have. I kept it pretty straightforward and open to, yes, sir.
Where does raw milk and coffee shops go?
I don't know about raw, can you elaborate on that? I mean, raw milk is allowed to be sold from the
Right,
farm.
and is there any inspection, any regulation, anything to protect the consumer from raw milk?
No, sir.
That's what I thought.
No, sir. Yeah, unfortunately, you know, there is nothing to protect the consumer.
Because everything's at grade A and raw milk is certainly not grade A.
Yeah, raw milk is certainly not grade A. That act was originally only goat milk, and then I think it was what, 7 or 8 years ago, Terry, it changed to include cow milk. So
I mean, you're only supposed to sell 500 pounds a month or a year or something, but no one is watching that.
right, and there's no record keeping requirement or anything like that. So
Can't go to a farmer's market with it, right?
that's right. You can't. No, it has to be sold from the home where it's produced, or the farm where it's produced, and they have to go there to get it. They can't. You can't meet them in a parking lot or anything like that. But again, they're probably doing time. We're not able to track it. So.
What about coffee shops? Do they come under the restaurant category or?
Yeah, coffee shops will be considered a restaurant.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. Secretary, I think at this point, we're gonna turn it over to you. Pat.
I'll step up here before we introduce our division directors for their updates, but just want to start by thanking Jeff and Terry for being here. There have been a couple questions about the Department of Health and the role that they play with food and agriculture, so appreciate both of them taking time to be here today, and I know both of them be happy to answer questions anyone may have after taking over with as well. I do want to say for Dr. Victoria, myself and Jeff went to Arkansas State together. That's where we first met almost 20 years ago now. It's been a little bit, but Jeff, just appreciate your commitment to agriculture and taking it to the Department of Health. So we've had the privilege of working with Department of Health, even more so since 2020 with the coronavirus. So work very closely with them on just trying to keep people operational. That's farmers markets, it's across the board, just trying to help get people all the food and agriculture information that they needed to continue to operate. So they've been very good partners, so appreciate them being here. My report is pretty similar to what I usually try to cover before we turn it over to division directors. I usually the day before the board meeting, I'll sit at home at night and I think about what's happened since the last board meeting and what are we focusing on and what's going on now and what's coming up into the future. And so just things I want to point out from our that's happened since our last board meeting back in February. Both myself and Cynthia participated in the NASDA Winter Policy Conference. NASDA, we continue to be pretty involved in that. Arkansas is currently in the leadership rotation. So For those of y'all that were with us last year, we hosted, we got to serve as the president of the Southern Association of State Departments of Agriculture, hosted that annual meeting here in Arkansas. We're currently in the leadership rotation for the National Association, which means here in a couple of years, 2025, we'll bring all 50 states to Arkansas and show them Arkansas agriculture. So we're incredibly excited about that, to have that opportunity really to highlight Arkansas agriculture multiple times throughout the year, and have that annual meeting coming up in a few years, and just talk about what we're doing here. We've also got to participate in a trade mission with the UK. We were invited by the British ambassador to participate in that. That was early March. As I'm sure most of you are aware, the UK pulled out of European Union, so the whole Brexit. So the UK is looking for trade agreements, and so they invited. There's about 5-6 states total that went. That they invited to come over to talk about agriculture, look for opportunities there. So we're happy to participate in that. In early March, and Paulo had a great visit there. I got to talk a lot about agriculture. I think there's a lot of misconceptions from the EU side and from the UK as well, just having been under that system for so long. What is safe agricultural production? And I think we've started some good dialogue. I think will be helpful moving forward into the future. One of the meetings we had over there was with the trade minister, her name Penny Mordaunt. I pronounced her last name wrong, but she's a trade minister now for the UK. And what was interesting to me, being in the Marine Corps, before she was the trade minister, she was basically their Secretary of Defense for the UK, which was pretty neat. Just awesome lady. Showed us around Parliament. Had a great tour with her. Very friendly, very hospitable across the board for the entire tour. Then shortly last month, she came over to the U.S. and wanted to come specifically to Arkansas. So she came and got to have lunch with the governor. We got to talk more about the relationship between the UK and Arkansas and agriculture some more there. So we're excited to participate in that. We've had also, since the last meeting, we've participated in the cattlemen's area meetings. Those are always great opportunities to get out and see the cattle producers and talk about issues that they're seeing. I made it to as many as I could. I think Patrick made it to all of them. I think I didn't quite make it to all of them, but was great meetings across the state that they do. Had several proclamation events with the governor. One was Ag Week that we did back in March, and then we had just this past Friday we had Beef and Egg Month proclamation with the governor. Several of y'all were able to participate in that, and so really enjoyed that. We had a flood insurance awareness proclamation that we got from the governor. We did this morning as well. Beef and Egg Month was really a lot of fun. The governor walked out wearing a cowboy hat, which is always fun to see the governor participating and supporting agriculture. And that was a gift to him from Governor Stitt in Oklahoma. So good relationship there. Governor Stitt's a big proponent of the support of agriculture as well. And so it's fun to kind of watch that relationship. Won't touch on a few other things I've written down, but you're just looking at priority items that are going on across the state, across agriculture. So when I started to write this down, I start with a blank sheet of paper, and I've got a list of at least 20 things on here. So there's always a ton of things going on that we're involved in that impact our state and impact the agriculture industry. I'll mention those very briefly, and the division directors will touch probably more in depth on some of these. But just wanted to recognize our team. A lot of them are here for the board meeting today. There are so many things going on that impact our state. Agriculture is our largest industry, so it makes sense that there's always a lot going on, a lot that we're working through. But we couldn't do it without a great team. We've got great division directors, we've got great staff really across the board that are involved in all these areas. Recruiting is always a challenge, but we've got great folks within the department. I know that they make y'all proud, make me proud, make the governor proud, and hope to make the industry proud as well for all that we're involved in and working on. A few of those items, federal funding is a big one. That's certainly something that's a focus of the governor for the rest of this year. So that's American Rescue Plan, that's infrastructure bill, just working through how that funding is going to be allocated. A lot of our involvement will be on the water, wastewater side, through natural resources, as well as forestry funding through the forestry division. not to mention the large scale irrigation projects that the governor is helping to move forward as well. Buffalo River Conservation Committee, that's another one we spend quite a bit of time on, just the work there. On that note, we do have, there will be a joint House and Senate Agriculture meeting next week up in Harrison for Buffalo River. So that's May 10th and May the 11th, plus a tour. Then we'll turn around on Friday, May 13th, and do some additional site visits for the Buffalo River Conservation Committee. So short story on that, Governor in 2019 gave $1 million to go towards conservation efforts and within the Buffalo River watershed. We share that and help lead those efforts. So we have made a lot of really good work there. We had a meeting last week. One of the funding decisions was for feral hogs, allocated about another $25,000 for feral hog work within the Buffalo River watershed. Feral hogs is another thing we spend quite a bit of time on. Moving past that, animal disease, I know Patrick is going to touch on these. Avian influenza, certainly one of the top priority issues we're dealing with right now across the state for the Ag Department as well. African swine fever, our lab capacity with the National Animal Health Laboratory Network. We're working through expansion with the University of Arkansas and their veterinary diagnostic lab. Mentioned feral hogs as well. Another one is fair funding. Another one that falls under Patrick. We spend quite a bit of time working on how funding is distributed to fairs. And so that's one would certainly appreciate y'all's feedback and input on. That's changed a little bit through the legislative session over the last couple of years. We've got another House and Senate Agriculture Committee meeting next week on May the 12th. Next week's going to be a lot of Agriculture Committee meetings, but May 12th, we're going to talk about fair funding. That's part of the World Development Conference. Mr. Bell will be there for that. Look at fair funding. Last year, we distributed about $4 million to fairs across the state. Who gets that money has shifted. There's confusion amongst who gets the money and how it's allocated, and the legislature is asking to help work through that as well. So we'll give them a presentation next week on how that currently operates. Doing a lot of work to enhance and build on our IT capabilities. Jeffrey's done a great job of just having this capability to have these Ag Board meetings and other capacities, database, online testing, a whole broad range of things that we're involved with to make things easier for the agriculture industry. More focused on the natural resources side, we participate in several different compacts, but we recently had Red River Compact Commission. We had that last week in Shreveport, Louisiana. Arkansas will host that annual meeting next year, next April here in Arkansas. We participate with Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana participate in that. Working through a little bit of a dispute. Louisiana doesn't quite think that we give them enough water, so we're working through that issue and just talking about water in general. That's one we've all got to be paying attention to. Even if we're not in a drought area currently, there's a lot of we're going through law school when people talked about water laws. That's the next big challenge. You see that out west. Spartan really does have to be thinking proactively, getting ahead. I think that's what the governor's trying to do with irrigation projects in East Arkansas. But water rights will be a big issue moving forward for Arkansas and for others. Illinois River, that's another one we're participating in. We're moving forward with some meetings scheduled for this summer to continue some dialogue there with Oklahoma. Voluntary smoke management guidelines, that's another one we hear quite a bit on row crop field burning. So working to push for adoption of those voluntary guidelines as opposed to having something required and forced on the industry from a regulatory or statutory standpoint. Forestry, a lot going on there. I know Mark will touch on this. We had an interesting last couple of weeks. Joe Fox, our state forester, is not here this week, but was able to participate with Chuck Lavelle. A lot of you are probably familiar with Chuck Lavelle. They'll probably maybe a little more familiar than I am, but keyboardist for the Rolling Stones, who has a tree farm, very involved in forestry, does the America's Forest with Chuck Lavelle, and did a couple episodes covering Arkansas. Joe Fox got to participate in that, was in one of those episodes. So he was in Arkansas last week, the week before last, so all the days are running together. So we got to spend a little time with him. It was a really good visit. And having someone like him, a member of the Rolling Stones, supporting agriculture and supporting forestry was really neat to be a part of. Mention trade, another couple items I do want to mention. Labor was just on the phone with Senator Ron Caldwell, who is the Senate Ag Committee chair for Arkansas, talking about the labor challenges that he's seeing, and we're planning to talk about this at one of the Ag Committee meetings next week. But from our standpoint, we've actually got a meeting with one of the placement companies for H-2A workers. Scott and his team with the Plant Industries Division has done an exceptional job of helping ADWS, the Division of Workforce Services in Arkansas, helping them conduct the housing inspections. We heard from a lot of producers as well as a lot of agricultural organizations on the challenges of getting those inspections complete. So we volunteered to help resolve that. Still working through some of the issues with the Department of Labor, but hopefully we'll get that mitigated where it won't be as big of a challenge moving forward in future years. Solar is another one. When you think about what are the issues and what are the big things that to be thinking about, water's certainly a very big one. Solar and just energy in general. We're going to try to have this kind of came up last meeting. Try to have Ted Thomas from Public Service Commission come to our next board meeting, kind of talk on utilities and a lot of those things. But solar is a big one that's expanding. We were just at a solar summit earlier this week. A lot of interest on what impact that has for agriculture and how agriculture can adopt it. So more to come on that one, but hopefully we'll have Ted Thomas come for our next meeting. Maybe try to get Delta Solar or someone to help talk about specifics on agriculture too. And then education's another big one as well. So if you look at the workforce challenges on labor challenges, I'm just trying to get people here. The other component of having labor is having qualified and trained people. So how do you educate, how do you get people involved in agriculture from an early standpoint, whether FFA, 4-H, other ag in the classroom sort of activities, carrying on through scholarship programs to get people pursuing more specific degrees in agriculture and related fields, something that we're looking at and trying to be more helpful on those as well. So those are just a few of the things that are going on that keep us busy. Moving forward, I probably touched on most of these, but just the Ag Committee meetings coming up. We've got several board and commission meetings coming up. We've got Groundwater Summit coming up in June. Fire policy, that's kind of more on the voluntary smoke management guidelines coming up in June. And then also probably seeing the state surplus. So the governor's been looking pretty closely at that, having conversations with legislative leadership, and very likely, I think we'll see a special session called. The governor said not before July, but probably sometime this summer we'll see a special session called to talk about the budget surplus and trying to get more of that money back to Arkansans. So that's very, very likely coming up in the very near future. Beyond that, 2023 legislative session, we just encourage everyone just to continue to be thinking about what are the statutory challenges that we see and changes that we need to see from the Arkansas legislature. Legislative session coming up next year. That'll be here before we know it, as Wade cringes in the corner on having to read all those bills. And then at the same time, 2023 Farm Bill, we're fortunate to have Senator Bozeman here in Arkansas. I know he's looking to schedule a field hearing sometime in the near future. So just as to have our congressional representatives here today, we've all got to be thinking about the 2023 Farm Bill as well. We've got a great team, great congressional delegation out there that's open ears on things that we see as Arkansans involved in agriculture and working to address those. So that's a quick update from my end. Now we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the division reports. But before we do that, any questions that I can help answer? Yes, sir.
Wes, do you anticipate any increase of exports from Arkansas with these talks with the UK? And if so, do you have a percentage number in mind?
Yeah, nothing yet. So I know that there were some tariff issues that the UK is looking to try to lift sooner rather than later. I think rice, I see Kelly here in the back, I think rice is probably one of their really big ones. I think they would probably buy a lot of Arkansas rice in the UK. That's forest products is another one. You see Drax here in Arkansas, which is a UK company. What they do, I think those are probably the two large ones that we would see an increase in. But I think from there it would just grow. They were open to discussions on everything, but it's very preliminary. They've mean to be political here, but they've kind of expressed their frustration a little bit with us on. Went through Brexit, they're looking for free trade agreements, and we don't have one yet with the U.S. And the U.S. doesn't have an agricultural trade negotiator. They don't have an undersecretary for trade. So they're like, come on, like we're asking for this, like help us move forward. So that was part of why they invited us to come over. I think they're really trying to push that relationship. That's why I met with the governor, try to help push that along as much as they can. So they don't have specific numbers other than they're trying to move as fast as they can. All right. Any other questions before we go into the division report? All right. Maybe we'll just go in order. I see Chris is sitting first, so we'll.
Thank you, Wes. Good morning, everyone. Good to see everybody. I'm Chris Carpenter, Director of Natural Resources. Just want to give some updates on some things that have occurred since our last meeting in February. In February, I had reported that we were in the process of selling general obligation bonds, which we were successful in doing that. The Department of Agriculture Natural Resources Division has authority granted from the public. It was voted on by the public in 97 and 2007 to issue a general obligation bond. We do that to help communities with water and wastewater. We also assist the irrigation districts with those funds. So we were successful in doing that. Got a decent interest rate, which we were glad to be able to sell those bonds before rates got up too high. And so that should carry us for about the next 18 months of the project. Meeting, board member Stephen Balloon, who's no longer on the board, had asked me several questions about levy funding. So I thought I would just give a quick update on levies. It's a result of the 2019 flood on the Arkansas River. The governor had released $10 million for us, the Natural Resources Division, to administer to levy projects. So we funded 16 levy projects. 9 of those are complete. And so the others are in various stages of completion. We hope to have them completed very soon. But a lot of the projects came in a little bit higher than anticipated. So we ended up issuing a little over $1 million in loans to some of these levy districts to be able to complete their projects. And we hope, as a result of a few projects coming in under budget, that we'll be able to reallocate maybe about $116,000. So we brought this up, Westwood on a levy working group. So we brought this up to the working group, and we have another meeting in May where I'll give a report. We hosted the Arkansas Conservation Partnership recently. It's 15 members, state, federal agencies, NGOs, Debbie's on there, AACD, to really, talk about conservation and some things that we want to do. 2 things came out of that. One, we put together a special committee to really look at the conservation districts. We have 75 across the state, and really take a deep dive look into those districts to see how we can help them more and how we can better serve them. There's a lot of conservation programs that run through those districts, down to the producers that are there working on the ground. So we want to do what we can, and that committee will come back. Debbie's on that committee, and Megan Perkins in my office, and so they'll come back and we'll make some recommendations to us. The other thing was to host a groundwater summit. In Arkansas, in East Arkansas and South Arkansas, a lot of demands on groundwater for their industry, drinking water, or agriculture or aquaculture. And so we're going to pull all of the folks together that work in that, whether it be monitoring, research, they have programs, irrigation districts, and just figure out what everybody's doing and how, we can work better together. Where are the gaps? Where are the needs? And so we'll host that in Lone Oak in June. So we're excited about that. We'll put the agenda together with them. Moving to the irrigation districts, they received some funding, so which is good when they receive funding on the federal side. So Biomeda received 24 million and Grand Prairie received 13 million. We appreciate Senator Mosley's work on that, and all of our congressional staff for helping get those dollars to the irrigation projects, because that's just going to move them further along the line. And, one of the things that we push for hard is trying to get those projects complete. And so we see the light at the end of the tunnel. We see them actually delivering water, maybe within the next 5 years. So that's going to be important as we discuss the groundwater issue and looking for alternatives. We're also in the process of working on a nutrient reduction strategy. We have a 2014 nutrient reduction strategy, so we're in the process of updating that. Right now, it's really in the stakeholder input phase of it. Secretary Ward had mentioned like the Illinois River. I mean, that's one where Oklahoma is looking at nutrients that are in the Illinois River. So this strategy helps guide us. We have programs, our 319 program, which is non-point source, which allows us to put dollars on the ground to fix eroding stream banks and other conservation measures. We also have an unpaved roads program where we work with counties to fix county roads, gravel roads at stream crossings. So we're there's just dumping a bunch of erosion and sediment and other nutrients in there. So this will be a good process for us. We've gone through a stakeholder process, but now we're in going to go out to the public. So we're going to host some public meetings across the state. We'll have one in Walton, Little Rock, Stuttgart, Wynn, Mountain Home, and Cave Springs. So we're going to be gathering input from the public in those watersheds. Secretary mentioned infrastructure. The Natural Resources Division, through our state revolving funds, is scheduled to receive about $93 million in additional funding for water and wastewater projects. So we're in the process of working with EPA. We're also in the process of working with the Department of Health. We had a meeting with Terry Paul and a lot of folks just recently as we look to implement those dollars. It sounds like a lot of money, but in reality, compared to the amount of need, we have about $5 billion in need for water and wastewater infrastructure across the state. And think about all the communities. But this money will definitely be helpful. Of that 93 million, about 46% of that has to be used for lead service lines. It can't be used for anything else. So, we're working closely with the Department of Health to try to figure out how to do inventory for a lot of communities that may not know if they have a lead service line issue. So we're working on that. And 93 million, as I mentioned, sounds like a lot, but just at our last commission meeting, our commission approved over $40 million in loans to 4 communities. So that just goes to show you that those dollars aren't going to go that far, but they are going to help. With our conservation districts, we recently assisted them in their elections. So they had 25 districts had elections, and so our commission certified those elections at our last meeting. We also did 5 appointments and 5 reappointments. And then in closing, Secretary Ward mentioned we had the Flood Awareness Week, Flood Insurance Awareness Week this morning. We coordinate the National Flood Insurance Program through the Natural Resources Division, where we help communities basically manage floodplain development. They have to permit, build up, those sorts of things. So that was great today to celebrate that. We had about 35 or 40 community representatives, and so floodplain administrators in their community to help manage their individual floodplain management program. Tied to that, recently, I don't know if you saw, but NRCS, USDA NRCS announced that there was going to be additional funds coming into the state. We're working with communities, so about $96 million for 19 communities through their PL 566 or their watershed program. Most of those are in East Arkansas and South Arkansas. So that concludes my report. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Y'all get off these easy streets. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see everyone again. So news on our plant board. The board met March 3rd. It was a regularly scheduled quarterly meeting. It was pretty much standard business. I'm happy to report. One thing they did do is they moved forward with some rulemaking associated with our industrial hemp program. The board met again on April 14th to finalize, well, to have a public hearing, to hear public comment, and to finalize their role as far in the rulemaking process for that industrial hemp rule. And there weren't, I think there were 3 comments received. Nobody really opposed the rule changes. And so it continued forward through the rulemaking process. And if I understand it right, it's probably at the Secretary of State's role now.
It'll be reviewed by legislative council on Wednesday, the 18th of this month. Just got the notice this morning.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Wade. So that rule is in the process. It's close to being completed. Really, all that really does is, you know, the USDA through the 2018 Farm Bill kind of changed the way the industrial hemp program at the federal level is viewed, and our legislature last year also initiated some legislation that also shifted the program. It initially started out as a research program. Now it's moving more to a commercial production program. So this rulemaking process, these rules are basically just to align the program with federal rule and new legislation. There's really not any drastic changes to the day-to-day operation of the program or to anyone that participates in the program. And I can answer further questions on that later if y'all want to go there. To continue on with our board, their next scheduled meeting is June 2nd. It's a regular scheduled quarterly meeting as well. They're pretty much just standard business as usual. Since in the meantime, we've had several committee meetings. The feed and fertilizer committee meeting actually met yesterday here. It was pretty much orientation for new board members and new committee members and some discussion on the state of fertilizer. Bureau Standards Committee is actually meeting tomorrow. It's standard business. It's for the purpose of reviewing some enforcement actions associated with non-compliance, mostly petroleum related. And then our pesticide committee is scheduled to meet on May the 19th, and it'll be for the purpose of hearing some enforcement related actions as well for the committees to review and recommend up to the board in that June 2nd quarterly meeting. One thing we have going on division-wide is we're in the middle of and in the first stages of a big-time systems management IT overhaul. I want to bring everybody up to date on that. I think I may have mentioned it in the past. It's been a long, drawn-out process to get to where we are today. This division, Plant Industries, formerly known as the Plant Board, we evolved over the years into, as technology came to us, we evolved into a hodgepodge of different databases and different IT related programs. It seemed like every program and every section did something a little different with a different type of database. There was not a lot of interagency communication and networking. So under the guidance of Secretary Ward, we're changing that. It's a huge undertaking. Right now, we have hired outside contractors that specialize in systems management and data conversion over into databases. They specialize in my terminology, the building of, the construction of databases. Jeff has done a great job. He's geared up his IT staff. So this is a combined joint effort between outside contractors when we need them, in-house staff when they're available. We've got 2 old antiquated databases, one Paradox, one Alpha 5, that we converted data out of into a new, more modern SQL out access looking data management system. We're looking at July 1st going live with one of the programs. We are in the middle of developing electronic forms for inspectors that auto-populate into database. We are in the middle of reaching out and working with another private contractor to put our pest control examinations online to make that an option for stakeholders. And we're also, as these databases develop, we're going to move more services to online where stakeholders can come to us through our website, can access their information, their licenses, do testing, so on and so forth. It will be, it'll be some time before it all meshes together and all systems and all programs interconnect. But when we're there, I just have the greatest confidence it's going to greatly improve the services we bring out to industry, to our stakeholders, and it's going to make your business and industry's business and the public's business with us much more user-friendly and much quicker and much easier, and hopefully will improve what we do and how we do it. So that's a big project underway. Moving on to the H2A inspection, Secretary Ward mentioned that earlier. Our role in that this winter was we basically did the field site inspections of the housing for Department of Workforce Services. That's where they were having trouble, and I'm not sure the reason, but they were overwhelmed and they just weren't able to actually get out there and look at these buildings and these houses. So we utilized our ag specialist group, which is a group of 30 inspectors. And these are the men and women that conduct the pesticide investigations and numerous other inspections for us. They sample fertilizer, they sample feed, they do a little bit of everything. They stepped up in a huge way. We received 162 applications from Department of Workforce Services and completed all those inspections. But that number 162 is not a real accurate reflection of just what these inspectors did. Each of those applications probably consisted anywhere from 1 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 buildings in 1 to 4 to 5 to 6 different locations. So each time they visited that applicant, that farmer, they didn't know what they were going into, but they got out there, and a lot of times it turned into a whole lot more anticipated. But they got them done. They got them done in a very timely manner, in a very professional manner. We took some forms, some inspection forms, some SOPs, for lack of a better word, from Department of Workforce Services. We digitized it. We made it more user-friendly. We made it where we could electronically correspond back and forth with them, which is something they weren't doing within their own department. So I'm really proud of how the staff handled it. It was very successful, and we got nothing but very positive feedback from that. And I do anticipate us having a role in that going forward. What that looks like, I don't know. I'm sure the minimum of what we'll do is what we did this year, to continue to do the on-site building / housing inspections. And our role may expand. We'll just have to see how this rolls out with Department of Labor. But whatever they were asked to do, especially with this program, we're going to do. Moving on to our pesticide program. This year so far, we've received 32 pesticide-related complaints, one of which is dicamba related. I think it was associated with burn down. Last year, and I think I'll provide this information just about every time I speak to y'all, but I'll go ahead and give you the tally from 2021 and 2020, just for your reference or as a refresher. In 2021, we received a total of 565 pesticide complaints. 360 of that were alleged dicamba. And in 2020, we received a total of 514 with 280 alleged dicamba. And I can't emphasize enough how much this has impacted our pesticide program and field inspectors that conduct the investigations. For 10 years prior to 2016, we probably averaged 150 to 200 pesticide complaints. 2016, it went over 1,000, and then it's been in the 400 to 500 ever since. So the workload on this group has essentially doubled in the last 6, 7, 8 years, and they've done a really good job managing. The dicamba rule for this year remains unchanged from last year. There's a June 30 cutoff. The buffers are still in place. There's a 1 mile buffer for U of A and USDA research stations. There's a half-mile buffer for organic and specialty crops, and these buffers are in all directions. They're not associated with one direction. And there's a 1/4 mile buffer for all non-BT related crops and plants. And that's just a brief overview of that rule. Another program that this pesticide group operates, which has been hugely successful, really gets a lot of good attention and deservedly so, is our abandoned pesticide program. This year, this spring, we conducted 4 collections. One was in Sevier County, and they collected 581 pounds. That sounds like a lot. Howard County, 488 pounds. In Polk County, 3,798 pounds. And then they shifted to Arkansas County, Stuttgart area, and got 142,000 pounds. So regionally, these collection events and the poundage collected varies regionally, but as you all can imagine, when you shift over to the eastern part of the state, it goes to the group. Since the beginning of collections, which goes back to the mid-2000s, I believe, maybe 2005, they collected and safely disposed of over 5 million pounds of unwanted pesticides. It is a no questions asked, bring it, and we'll take it until we run out of room. So it's a really good program. Continue to keep working it and grow it in any way that we can possibly manage to. From our regulatory services group, this is the group that conducts, they provide services out such as peanut grading, fruit and vegetable grading, produce safety inspections, apiary inspections, beehive inspections, invasive species survey and monitoring. From our peanut program, it's expected to go up a little bit this year. Last year, we managed 5 buying points for the peanut industry. One was in Portia, one was in Pocahontas, one in Marianna, and one in Jonesboro, and one in Kennett, Missouri. This year, I think the Missouri Department of Ag, they've completed their cooperative agreement with USDA, and I think they've got licensed, so they're going to take over the Kennett, Missouri buying point for the peanut grading. We're still, I think we're scheduled to meet with them next week. We're still going to provide some leadership out to them. They've been out of the peanut grading business for some time. I'm not sure why. So they're starting basically from scratch up there. So we're still going to provide some leadership and some guidance out to them and probably some training to ensure that they can properly grade and manage that buying point. It's certainly in the best interest of both states and of Arkansas. The group that owns that buying point and will move peanuts through it is the Delta Peanut Group, one Arkansas based, and they pretty much own all these buying points except one. The one at Portia is owned and managed by Birdsong Peanut Company. Delta Group also is the group that constructed the Schiller plant in Jonesboro. It is up and running. I don't think it's at full capacity yet. I think we're 2 years in. They're still working some bugs. It's a huge plant. It's a very complex operation, but we do have that fully staffed, and we grade milled peanuts through that Schiller plant on 2 shifts. We do a day shift and a night shift, Monday through Friday, and the plan is that at some point that Schiller will probably get to where it's running 24/7. We'll manage probably 3 shifts in that plant at that time. This same group I'm talking about here, our regulatory services, I mentioned that they do an invasive species monitoring program. This is the group that they'll try to anticipate or foresee any potential threat, any potential possibly invasive ag-related pests and do surveys ahead of it. I was actually running the program in 2014 when we discovered the emerald ash borer. I don't know if any of y'all have heard of that. I probably have. That was an invasive pest to ash trees, and it has pretty much devastated our native ash population. Unfortunately for us, we were able to detect it. We just did not have a lot of options to manage it or do anything with it other than watch it spread across the state and just do untold millions of dollars worth of damage to our native ash population. Recently, through this program, another invasive pest has been discovered. It's called Coban grass. It's an Asian grass that is well established in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. It's typically a forest-related pest. It outcompetes native vegetation. It will just take over a huge area, and it's very difficult to manage and control once it gets well established. We discovered a patch of that last year on the side of the highway, just this side of the Helena Bridge, I believe. We assumed it moved over from Mississippi. It was a small patch. Staff from this program actually did 2 treatments last year. They went and they monitored this year, and so far it doesn't look like anything is reemerging. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we caught it in time, and hopefully this is the only area Coban grass has invaded the state. We will do surveys out from that area, and then we'll just do a general survey up and down the eastern side of the state to see if we can detect any more. But hopefully, unlike emerald ash borer, Coban grass will be something that we can manage and contain and eliminate. So moving on, our Bureau of Standards, that's another section that does a lot of really good work. One thing to highlight from them is they're in the middle of a little bit of a shift in their petroleum oversight program. What we're doing over there is there seems to be a little bit of a gap in sampling. We do very good quality, high confidence sampling from fuel at the terminal, and then we do good, high quality, high confidence sampling of fuel at the pump. But there's transport in between, and there's some potential of non-compliance contamination there that is possibly getting picked up on the far end at the retail end, and the retailers getting blamed for it. So what we're intending to do is we're buying some field units, some field testing units where we can sample some of the trucks on site before they dump their loads into the tank at the gas station. It'll give us another data point for determining the quality of fuel and where potential contaminations might come from. It'll also help the program shorten the term of stop sales, because when we do find non-compliant fuel, the first thing we do is stop sell those pumps, which can be a huge cost on that little business owner. It is necessary for the purpose of protecting the public and the gas you're putting in your cars, but it can be very expensive on that small business owner. So we're going to do everything we can to shorten the time of that and to identify the contamination source it might not be on that small business owner. So that's a little bit of a shift over there in that program. It's an evolving program. It's a great program. It does a really good job of keeping fuel and petroleum safe. We have a few complaints here and there from bad gas in cars, but not as many as you would think. That pretty much wraps it up for Plant Industries, unless anybody has any questions or talk more about it.
Just a quick question on the pesticide or oversprays or drips complaints. Do y'all monitor those past identification? So do y'all follow those complaints through harvest to determine if it impacted or how many acres at the end of?
No, sir, we do not. We don't assess damage or the level of damage or how it might have impacted yields or anything beyond that. Our role stops when we determine whether a label violation occurred or not. And we conduct enforcement associated with label or rule violations. U of A does a little bit of that, maybe. Board might elaborate on that a little bit more. I'm not sure how far they go into that. That has never been our role.
Well, I guess where I'm going is what's the global damage of these complaints to the farmers or to, the bottom line?
That's a good question. And we do look at some of those figures, but I don't have them top of my head.
Right, and I don't know that anybody has that kind of, or that much data.
No.
So it's a really tough question. Good question, but a tough one to answer.
Thank you.
You mentioned on fuel and monitoring it. Is anyone monitoring natural gas that you know of in terms of the purity or the BTUs? Or
Not to my knowledge. This group would monitor the sale of it based on volume, like, to assure that, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure how it is measured, but to assure that it's measured properly, that you're getting what you're buying as far as as far as the quality goes. No, sir, I don't think so.
So they are monitoring what's being like an individual meter. How are they doing?
Yes, they're doing that at the meters.
Okay.
And they do the same thing at gas pumps. They do the same thing in retail stores, scales they'll check. They'll randomly grab a bag of potato chips and measure it out. That's how far they go with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody. Call me if anybody has any questions. Well, while Patrick's coming up, I do want to say just to that question, I think that's something Ted Thomas from the Public Service Commission should probably speak a little more in depth to, and we do have talked to him. He said he'd be willing to come and talk to the board, so hopefully our next board meeting we have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary, appreciate your comments will go. It touched on a lot of the things that we address each and every day on foreign animal diseases, whether they impact us or they threaten us, fair funding grants. So we're working on that. So I'll concentrate more on a couple of the high priority items that we've been working on as of late. Livestock side, been pretty much business as usual, no real issues in cattle, swine, or equine right now. Our biggest challenges here of late in the poultry industry. One of the biggest challenges we're suffering with here in Arkansas is ILT, or infectious laryngitis tracheitis. It's an upper respiratory virus that affects the trachea up in the lungs. They can be pretty extreme. I don't want to get too graphic here, but they can be slinging blood at some point. So it's a very contagious infectious disease. We always suffer that through the wintertime. Wintertime houses are, the challenges with air quality are a lot higher. So it increases the challenges for viruses. And LT has always been a challenge for us in years, but typically it'll burn itself out in the summertime. It's always been concentrated more in the northwest part of the state. That's where your highest concentration of farms are, because you have that lateral movement or lateral spread from one farm to the next. Litter applications is a big contributor to that as well. But this virus has spread. It's jumped all the way over to East Arkansas, Northeast Arkansas, and all the way down to Jerry's territory down there in the Nashville area. So we've got a lot of challenges with that. So we're meeting with the industry right now to try to figure out a plan how we can control this virus a little bit, because it does have a pretty good impact financially on the industry as well as the growers. It's not a depopulation type situation. What we do is we control that by control marketing. So in other words, these are usually when they get highly affected, when you start losing 500, 1,000, 2,000 birds a day, it's towards the end of the cycle. So they're almost at selling age. However, the impact is they may sell a week early than they typically would. And when it comes to the grower, it's all about the scale weight. So more pounds across that scale, the more he gets back. So it is having an impact on them. So we're working with the industry right now to try to figure things out. We don't have any regulations in regards to the litter application, but we're gonna make some suggestions to the industry. Again, a large concentration of farms, if you're land applying poultry litter from a positive flock, that will drift over into another field and into some other houses, especially when times when it's getting a little bit warmer and starting to suck a little more air into the house. So anyway, we're working on that. And another one of the biggest challenges we have not dealt with here in Arkansas right now, but it's a little thing y'all probably heard of, avian influenza. It's all around us. We're trying to be as proactive as possible. We put a lot of measures in place to try to prevent that from affecting here in Arkansas. And what I did is I kind of pulled together a direct comparison from 2015 was the last and most significant outbreak that we've ever had. Nationwide, we never had an outbreak impact us quite like we did in 2015. So compared 2015 to the current outbreak in 22. So I think we got a map that y'all be looking at while I talk. But in 2015, we had around 200 cases. So far this year, we've had 279 cases. The time frame between the 15 outbreak was from December of 14 to June of 15. We've been dealing with it since about January, so now. And it's affected in 2015, most of the majority of what it affected was layers, broiler breeders, and turkeys. A few backyard flocks, but not significant enough. This has impacted everything. Broilers, breeders, turkeys, backyard flocks. About 32% of all the cases in the United States right now are backyard flocks. Free range outfits. We didn't have free range in 2015. We've got 30 to 40,000 birds in a pasture right now out in the middle of open. So it's a challenge. Wildlife, migratory birds have always been what we consider the vector of carrier. They've never really showed any symptoms of the virus. Now we're seeing wildlife actually dying from the virus. In 2015, we had 3 different strains, H5 or H8N5, H5N1, H5N8, and H5N1. So 3 different strains. All of the cases, all throughout the United States, every case has been H5N1. It can all be traced to Asia. That virus outbreak they had there. And on the map, you'll see the red little ticks or whatever that is there. Those are our commercial operations. Blue is backyard, and you can see how widespread that is. And the little orange pins are the wild birds that's affected. Here's where the virus started in Canada, and we've seen a very fast progression of wild birds being affected all along this Atlantic flyway. These have been the biggest contributors to the virus. In 15, we've seen a lateral movement from one farm to the next. It was infecting this farm, this house, and just spreading in that way. This has just been all over the place. It's been very sporadic and not consistent in any way. So it's all been tied to wild bird feces depopping on the farm, it being tracked into the house. As you can see, we don't show Alaska, all the way down to Texas, all the way as far east as Maine and west in Utah. In 2015, it was all right here. Now, we did have a case here in Arkansas, around North Arkansas, but the concentration of cases were here. And again, it was that lateral movement virus spread. This virus has just been all over, unpredictable all over the place. So it's been a real challenge for industry to try to contain this. So far, or 15, there were 16 states affected, 32 have been affected with this outbreak. 50 million birds were depopulated in 15. We're up to 36.8 million now. And we still got another 2 months of numbers or potential spread. So this is measuring up to be as a significant, if not more, than the 2015 outbreak. So what have we done? I feel like we've done a pretty good job of really getting the word out. Thanks to Amy and her group and marketing. We've done a lot of marketing campaigns, we've got information out, we've done TV and radio interviews, we put YouTube videos out there to try to get the word out. And again, with the 32% backyard plots and the free range folks, those are the ones that really been kind of targeted. The biosecurity is paramount. We've got to make sure that we have a good biosecurity plan. Backyard folks really don't really have that. They've never really concentrated on biosecurity things. And not to say that our industry is not affected, yes, but they do have some biosecurity plans. So we've been focusing a lot on our free range and backyard. So in March, we put the commission had passed an emergency rule. I think 23rd of March is when the ALC approved that. And it put restrictions on movement of birds. Required that all free range birds, all backyard birds be confined and undercover, which we did get a little flack from that, from the backyard folks. You know, they got 10 birds. They don't have a barn to put them in. So we did get a little kickback from that, but they understood exactly what we're trying to do. And that's to keep any kind of exposure from wild birds. So that is kind of smoothed over. It's been effective. And then any kind of shows or exhibitions, those have been banned. And all those, that emergency rule will stay in effect until the end of July. Hopefully that's going to have a huge impact on preventing the virus from hitting Arkansas. We're doing a lot of testing right now. We've had over 4,800 tests conducted since January. 1,400 of those have escalated up to a higher priority. We're actually doing PCR testing on those. In other words, a serology test indicated something present that looked like avian influenza. So we escalated that up to a PCR test. 122 of the 4,800, which doesn't seem like a big number, but those were escalated up to a foreign animal disease USDA investigation, which takes a number of hours and a lot of work. Our staff in our lab, as well as our field staff, put in a ton of hours. We were up here at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes doing this. So we built a very high concentration on testing. The challenge is what I mentioned before about the ILT. Some of the same symptoms, some of the same things we're looking for as far as avian influenza mirror that of ILT. So we've been on the edge of our seats. Anytime we get a call, someone that says, well, I'm losing 1,000 birds a day, the water consumption's dropped, or the egg production's dropped, well, we get kind of excited about that. Most every case so far has been an ILT outbreak. So we've been really lucky with that. But we're conducting investigations on wild birds. Never thought I would have this conversation, but we got a call from a row crop farmer, said, I've got 50 dead pelicans on the edge of my field. What's going on? So we ran up there to go check that out. Tested those birds, come back negative. Luckily, those birds had went through a recent hailstorm and they were just beat all to pieces. So, but nonetheless, it got us a little excited around here because of the potential for wild birds and migratory fowl getting the virus. So, the other things that we're doing, we're working on again is as much education as possible. And like I said, I think we've done a pretty good job there. The other issue I want to talk about is I'll give you a little bit of an update on our state meat inspection program. We are this close. Matter of fact, we're going to be issuing the information, our rules, our plans, and our letter to USDA this week. So just about a couple of weeks ago, ALC approved our plan or our rule. So that's going to be going into effect, or effect is filed last week, 2 weeks ago. So anyway, that's effective now. So we're working with USDA to get that program in place. So we'll have, basically from this week, we'll have about 60 days for USDA to complete, do all their thing, what they're going to do. And then we'll have 60 days to sign what's called an MOU or agreement that we'll have with them. And then from that point, we'll have 90 days to actually implement the program. So now we're kicking everything in high gear. We're looking at hiring folks, inspecting facilities right now. We'll be taking applications next week on those facilities that are interested in getting a state program. We've got about 4 that we know are interested that we feel like will pass inspection. That's a low number, but it's a new program. We feel like there'll be a lot more eventually get on board. We kind of feel like there's some sitting back and watching and looking and kind of seeing how the program's going to work out. Eventually, within the next year, we'll go to a CIS program or a national program where it can go across the state line. That's the biggest challenge we have right now is some of our USDA graded facilities right now want to stay with USDA so they can sell online across the state line. So we'll entertain that program later on, but we got to be under probation for about a year before we can go from that point. But anyway, a lot of headway has been here this last couple of weeks. So we're excited about getting this going. So
Patrick, where are the locations of those four?
They're spread out pretty good. We've got one that's around Hot Springs area. We've got a couple north and a couple in the south. The ones that border our state on the west and the north, those are the ones that are USDA and they sell across the line. So we've talked with them. They said that they would be interested in doing it, but they really don't want to restrict any kind of sales. One of the ones we're excited about is actually your part of the country, Southwest Arkansas. They were USDA, but they told us and promised us that they'll go with the state. Even though they do have a contract out of state, they're willing to go ahead and go with our program because they know us and they're willing to work with us. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Mark Chair, Deputy State Forester. I'm here on Joe's behalf. Joe gave me 5 minutes, so I'm not going to be long. First of all, the forecast, I'm going to bring it up. That is not good news for forestry. If you remember 2010, 2011, we fought fire from spring all the way through summer, all the way into fall. And kind of keeping on that track this year, the first 4 months, we've had 853 fires and we burnt over 20,000 acres, right? Probably 16,000 of that is forest, rest is non-forest, fields, grasses. Kind of put that in perspective, 20,000 acres in the first 4 months precedes the last 9 years. The last 9 years, we've kind of had mild fires, good weather. So 4 months in, we've already topped it. 853 fires. We had a few years that had more than that, but very few. One of the issues we're having is personnel. Don't really understand the reason. Right now, we have about 20 positions open in the field, and we gain one, we lose two, we gain one, and we don't know why. It's used to, we get a stack of applications this thick, and we went to the best candidate. Now we're getting one or two or none. One of the main issues we're having is foresters. Right now, there's 9 forester positions open. Some of them have not been filled in quite a while. 8 of those are what we call county foresters, which works hand in hand with landowners. So because of that discrepancy, or that our foresters not being there, our foresters that are there are having to take on extra duties, work more counties. We kind of went on a recruiting trip down to Louisiana Tech to recruit some foresters. And to be honest with you, I'm old school. Those kids really impressed me. They were really good, high quality students. The problem was every one of them that we interviewed had at least 2 job offers already. And I'm kind of putting my own hat on here. Because of my gift for gab, I impressed a couple of them. And they're wanting to come to Arkansas. Because I'm from Louisiana. I told them, hey, I was there. Didn't take me long to leave. Arkansas is the place to be. But the thing that got their attention is, we were doing the Death by PowerPoint program. And you can see those kids were kind of getting bored. So we started telling war stories on fires. And I mentioned, you know what? We partner with the Forest Service. So y'all see all these big fires out west? You come to work for us, we'll let you go out there and fight those fires. And they were like, great, where do I sign up? So we've got some hopefuls coming in. We've got 3 that we're in constant contact with. And basically, we've offered them a job. We said, you have a job, where do you want to go? We've got 9 openings. You just tell us where you want to go, we're going to put you there. 1 graduates in May. She's looking at South Arkansas. 1 is coming to North Arkansas to intern through the summer and then hopefully stay up there. And then the last one, bless her heart, she didn't weigh 90 pounds with rocks in her pockets. And she said, I have to have a Walmart and a Target. And I said, you're pretty limited on county.
We got that, Jonesboro.
Benton County.
Benton County, yeah, I mean, and we have a forester opening in Washington County that has Benton County, so we're gonna put her somewhere. The good news on the forestry part, we just came off of our Free Tree Fridays. I don't know if y'all seen them, but marketing did a great job advertising these. Put my glasses on, the numbers we had, over 4,000 people that we made contact with on these Free Tree Fridays. And we gave out over 17,000 seedlings. All right, that's probably 4,000 or 5,000 more than we did last year. And it's an opportunity to see the people come to us and us tell them what we do. So that was a good outcome on the Free Tree Fridays. And that's all I have, unless y'all have questions. Oh, thank you. Right outside the door, we have, hold up the little book. We got the little handout. It's Pocket Guide to Forest Insects. Chandler Barton, our forest health guy and marketing, put that together. Real great. It really don't fit your pocket, but it's got everything you need to know and you're afraid to ask. So take them when you go. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will, we'll just add real quick, one, we're glad that Mark wasn't wearing any sort of purple or LSU attire today, but he's a good one. We're glad to have him. Anyway, he's talking about the fires, and we do have 2 currently that are out in West Texas.
Yes, sir. 2
right now.
right now.
Yeah. So they, as you mentioned, you'll go through training on incident command systems and in response to wildfires. And so whether it's, we've had people up in Oregon and Washington, and we've got a couple people out right now in West Texas helping with their fires. So they do a great job of helping to train our folks. Once we get them in here, we train them and treat them right as best as we can. And they have great capabilities where they get pulled to come help out in other states. And that also affects our ability to retain them, because sometimes they come in, they get this really good training, and it's not too hard for them to leave to go somewhere else. But great group of folks, great training that they do there. So just wanted to highlight that. And last thing I wanted to mention too, appreciate all of our division directors and our staff across the department. There's a ton of things going on. There always is, but we would just ask y'all, if y'all hear of issues in y'all's areas and people who need assistance, please don't hesitate to let us know. Certainly y'all are a priority for us. We want to make sure that we're being responsive to y'all and getting you the things that you need. So if you've got people who need help, we're happy to do that. But then separate from that, we'll just ask, if there are things that we're missing, if there are things that y'all see that, hey, why aren't y'all doing this, or why are y'all doing this way? Please don't hesitate to let us know. We're always trying to make sure that our programs are as best and most responsive to the industry and to the people of Arkansas. So if there are things that we can do to improve, please don't hesitate to let us know about those as well. But yeah, we'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Any other business? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment. So we've got a motion, second. Please don't forget, we got a little beef right outside this door for lunch. So, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign. Thank y'all very much.
You won. Too bad. Yeah, they.